And a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this reverberation better not start again like yesterday's interview. This is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. We have Danny Thompson in here, back in the room, in the virtual room. Danny, how you doing?
It's always good to be on Late Night Parents. Haven't done this in a while, and I was going to hope to have enough time to show my piano skills on tonight's show, but I think I might wait till next time.
Yeah, dude. I've been trying to. You've been booked rock solid. I've been chasing you across the East Coast. You're harder to get in contact than Deion Sanders.
Listen, I mean, if I had Prime's reach, it'd be a different story right now. It would, Ted, both of us work in the education field. That beginning of the school year is
It's hectic.
always hectic. Is not the word. Rough, hectic. You can just name it. It's that right at this point.
Yeah,
But it's good. It's good to be able to kind of sit back and go back to what we'd love to do and love to talk about. So I'm always glad to be on here.
I tell you, since the last time we did live stream / podcast, I picked up the specs. I usually just wear them for nighttime driving and watching TV, but it's starting to pick up a little bit more. I'm starting to pick up a few more tasks why I would need to wear the glasses, but we all get to that point. Danny, a lot to cover. I know I think you and we kind of do it. The best podcasts are 30 minutes or less. We put a little time frame up there. From time to time, we tend to go to, that's that background noise. We tend to go to overtime. With that being the case, tell me what's happening with, we could talk USA basketball, but I think we need another long form podcast / article / live stream to talk about that debacle. So we'll quickly go into TKO closed out its acquisition or the combination of UFC and WWE. Is now TKO. What's your thoughts on it?
I mean, it's official now. Now you have real fighting and what people call fake fighting under the same company. So it's literally the biggest conglomerate of mixed of what you call professional entertainment you're going to find. Extremely interested to see how much they blend the two together. How the minds of UFC and the minds of WWE come together to take some of the things they've learned from each other, what works, what not works, and come to this. I know I read something today. They were saying that they're considering even putting on a mega event weekends, and they were going to host cities to see who would be interested in hosting one that would have a UFC show and a WWE pay-per-view in one weekend. Make it one big mega fest. And that for me, as someone who's been wanting to see a UFC fight and is a fan of the WWE, would be like an amazing type weekend. That's a weekend. It's automatically, you're going to spend money. It's something you're going to bring two different cultures together for all the greater good of sports. And I'm interested to see how that's going to work. I wonder how that's going to work with television contracts. There's so much to do with it, and change is always inevitable in some things. And you got to think, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the son bought it from his dad for $1 million and sold it for $9 billion. Like, the return on investment is astronomical. So I can't wait to see what the new iteration of what's going on with the WWE and UFC going forward.
You and I were talking about in pre-pro. Hey, Tony D, what's going on?
Tony.
We were talking about in pre-pro. We were talking about media rights. We were talking about why it's going to be a powerhouse because you could sell those two properties together. I
You
don't know
can.
if they would want to sell them together versus spreading it out, but it's going to be. I think their next contracts are going to be, if not 2x, then 3x.
I don't know if you put them on the same brand. I kind of think you kind of keep them separate because, like you said before, the whole object is to remake the $9 billion that was sold, the company is sold for, in the merger. I think you keep them separate because it's two different demographics. There's mixed martial arts fans and there's sports entertainment fans. Not a lot of times both. It's not a big number that do both. So you kind of want to keep everything on one side, keep the other side, and come together when it's needed most. But I don't think you need to be on the same set of networks. Stay where you are. Make as much money as possible. Drive those media rights up. It is what it is.
I think from the point of just speaking on the fact that you can have the library over at Peacock. I mean, they're making so much cash from just library versus premium live events. Maybe keeping that package together. Basically because they have a long-standing relationship with Comcast, Universal, NBC, that conglomerate there. But the UFC, the mega weekends, I think are going to be great because I think at some point, Danny, there's going to be cross promotion. You're going to see UFC fighters and WWE performers at each other's event even more now, kind of
I
like
think
on
so.
steroids.
I think so. I mean, we same thing when you watch like boxing matches. You see different fighters at other people's fights. A lot of them, if top rank is there, for example, you have top ranked fighters at these fights. And I think you're going to see cross promotion, but at the same time, Ted, one thing we have not seen, Ted. One thing that was kind of intriguing to me with this is one thing the UFC does not have is a catalog to be able to watch things that have happened before.
It's true.
That's something we haven't seen that. And I think now with the Peacock infrastructure the way it is, it wouldn't surprise me if with this TKO endeavor that they go to Peacock and say, hey, let's open up a UFC library. Not
Mm,
necessarily get UFC fights. Because we're still stuck, we're still with ESPN.
right.
But since ESPN doesn't have that type of, idea to use the old catalog, put a UFC catalog. Because Ted, there are fights that we've always wanted to rewatch that are really difficult to find. I'm not saying, I'm not sure if they're going to be able, Ted, to go back to the old UFC, Ted. We're talking about UFC 1 and UFC 2 when it
Hmm.
was guys, breaking their arms and it was almost thrown off cable. But there's nothing like for me watching, Anderson Silva in his prime, or going back and watching, Rampage go at it with Rashard Evans. Those are the things that we haven't seen in 10, 12, 13 years. And there's so much that library catalog that Ted that's not even been tapped into. It'd be almost like to the point where Ted, where you remember when WWE Network first came out.
Yes.
Yeah. You remember? I remember the day it came out. We were discussing it, and I think both of us put our phones on Do Not Disturb for 2 days because we were watching everything that we can remember
Yes.
from the '80s,
Yes.
early '90s. WWE. I mean, I remember watching WWF Superstars for about at least a good 16 to 20 hours straight, just the old episodes. And you can only imagine if you put a catalog of the UFC on there with the millions upon millions of fights they had.
True. I just think there's so many options
Mhm.
because when you think of the fact that maybe Fox might want to get back into that business again, maybe Turner might want to get into that UFC business. Does the UFC
I
try to
can't
pull
see,
a no?
I can't see UFC on anything that's Warner related because you already have the establishment with Tony Khan and Shad Khan. You already have that relationship. Can you imagine TKO showing up on a Warner brand network? That would be a that would just be a slap in the face at that point. There's no way.
Really?
Come on,
when it
Ted.
when it comes to just business,
Ted, yes, it's just business. But Ted, the one thing you've learned about business, Ted, you know you work in the public sector on the business side of things as well as IT, that you just sometimes it might be a great money grab, but not all money is the best money.
right? I was thinking more as real estate, and I was thinking more on the lines of kind of like how the NFL works with all the partners. I'm
Yeah, that's fine.
thinking
Yeah, but Ted, but you gotta understand the other part of TKO is not the UFC, it's the WWE.
it's
Their main
WWE,
competition is AEW's AEW's main competition. So
right?
I couldn't see that on a Warner family, but I really could see I mean in the next media rights, hey, UFC saying, hey, we want more ABC real estate, or hey, we're gonna call CBS up. Otherwise, we have NBC in our back pocket because we have the Peacock idea.
Right.
Um, but those are some of the things I think about. But I mean, I think the partnership with ESPN is perfect because they have the pay per view. They still have all the buy rates. I mean, I don't know. There's so much cross promotion that you can do, and maybe ESPN Plus works with Peacock on those super shows where you can buy both of them together in the same weekend. Ted, the UFC show on Saturday and WWE show on Sunday and on pay per view the same weekend. And
That makes sense.
make it
That
year round
makes sense.
and make a university to both sides.
Yeah, I mean stuff like that totally makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. We're definitely going to see how this something like this plays out. It's going to be really interesting because when those streaming rights, those media rights come around, it's
Mhm.
it's it's going to be a hot property.
Bloodbath.
uh, let's see. Quickly, we can go into where are we gonna go? We're gonna go to I guess real briefly we can touch USA basketball, if I can spell it
So,
correctly.
yeah, USA basketball. It, the last 3 weeks were very interesting. We went from Team USA looking like they were going to dominate in the world spectator. Then you saw the chinks in the armor, and it came to Lithuania. They lost Lithuania. Everybody was shell shocked of what was going to happen. Went back, blew out Italy, and then it fell apart again to the
Yeah,
point where we lost 2 consecutive games in a row, including the bronze medal game to Canada, who won their first ever medal in anything in basketball on the major stage. They lost to Germany, they lost to Canada. So it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty, but they have a road ahead of them, and if you ask LeBron James, they're going to rerun. They're going to rerun the Redeem Team in 2024. We're going to have the French Revolution in France. I guess we're going to try this all over again. But I think at this moment, it's interesting where Grant Hill and that committee has on their hands coming up in the next 8 months to get these guys ready for Paris.
I'm not going to touch this topic any further because I want to get to Jim Trotter
Mhm.
has a lawsuit against the NFL.
Mhm.
Um, the usual chaos that the NFL always finds themselves in. It seems like every other year.
It is. The one thing with this case, it's really where Jim Char is going, what the perspective he's coming from with this, because he was an NFL employee, he worked for the Shield, he worked for the Shield, and that's different than a lot of times when people go out the Shield because they don't work for the Shield. He was a prominent member of the media of the Shield, and he was let go. Now, fortunately for Jim, he's now at the Athletic, and so this is why this lawsuit can come in place because he's not part of it. I think he's standing up for what he believes in. He's standing up for what he's gone through, and no one can explain his experiences. I do think that I don't know if this thing gets to trial. The NFL has so many powerful parts to it. I feel like as far as Jim's going to take this, the NFL is going to try to sweep this thing under the rug. And who knows? I think a large settlement will come to keep this thing out of the media as long as possible. Ted, every time the NFL gets in some hot water with anything, especially now with Jim, the comments we made about some of the things involving two NFL owners and racist remarks, there is a saying with the NFL, old saying of the media side of the good old boys. So with that being said, if that's true, that's true. I've never worked inside the NFL Shield before, so I'm not part of that inner circle. But for as much as I've read Jim Trotter and know people that know Jim, he's not going to the type that's going to sit here and fabricate a story. He's been a journalist for this amount of time and well respected. So I think the Shield would get this thing out the way. They can't let this thing drag on. The season's going on right now. There's so many storylines right now. The NFL is going to have to get rid of this thing real quick.
I've always been a fan of Jim Trotter. A lot of us have been. He's someone we can look up to.
I read his column every time it hits The Athletic.
Yeah. Sad. It was just sad when the layoffs were happening at NFL Network and he was included in there, because I would think of every year with Media Day and he's just zinging Roger Goodell. And he's not really even technically zinging him. He's just asking him to answer this question regarding the coaches.
Or anything, or just the
American general managers,
or the lack of diversity in the league itself. Not in just the front offices, the media side, in this part, in this part, in this part. In a league where the majority of the players are black, most of the people in decision-making powers are not black. Most of the power people are not black. So, why does it work this way? Why is it not this way? And, whatever Roger Goodell feels about it, it's come to a head. And, like I said, for Jim, the most beautiful part about it is he's writing again. He's writing for literally the largest, publication in the country. Athletics so largest in the country now. And,
and that's also affiliated with the New York Times. So it doesn't get any better.
Yeah, you lose a job that you've had for so long, but you end up sometimes the blessings come in and change. And so the blessing is that he gets to be himself. He gets to write about what he wants, and you can tell in the first articles he's had in The Athletic, the work is amazing over there.
I mean, his work from The Athletic stands on its own two legs, but the second part about it is with Jim Trotter being aligned with the New York Times. And you're not the New York Times isn't beholden to a sports league. So that's the best thing about it, where you have all these other media companies that are paying billions upon billions of dollars to the NFL and to the other three major sports leagues, where The Athletic, New York Times is just going to report what's going on out there. What's the news?
Yeah. They march to the beat of their own drum.
I'll put up here WNBA playoffs. I'm going to share the screen really quick. And I want to make sure I click on.
On this wonderful article at latenightparents.com.
Latenightparents.com is WNBA playoffs, first round matchups and schedule. I think we spent most of the year, Danny, talking about the Las Vegas Aces and the New York Liberty, the quote unquote two super teams. You highlighted that early on with the start of the season, and now we're going to have four matchups. First matchup is, of course, they're the one seed, Las Vegas Aces versus the Chicago Sky, who's also the 8th seed. Danny, you want to provide any commentary on that series?
Here's the thing: the Sky still have a dominant player in Clay Copper, still one of the most. I think she's still one of the top 10 to 15 players in the league. Maria Mayberry is still one of the better shooters in the league. And the Sky play hard. They slipped into the playoffs, and in most circumstances, most situations, they would have a chance to win this. But the problem is the Aces are extremely good at this moment. Um, Asia Wilson has been dominant since the All-Star game. She's at almost 25 and 10 since the All-Star game. The Aces are still the best team in the league. They're catching their stride again. And, when you have the defensive, I think she won Defensive Player of the Year today, as well as the Sixth Woman of the Year, Alicia Clark, and Becky Hammond as the head coach. There's no doubt that this series should be a 2-game sweep. I don't know. Chicago might put up a fight, but I think it's a 2-game sweep in this one.
The number 2 seed against the number 7 seed. We got the New York Liberty versus the Washington Mystic. And I think this could be the only series that there could potentially be an upset. What is your thoughts?
If Alea Deladon was 100% healthy and Shakira also was 100% healthy, I would agree with that statement. Alea Deladon is not 100% in the series. Like I said, Shakira also is now getting herself back into shape, back into the swing of things. And the Mystics have a really, really good team. They're dangerous, but man, Liberty been so good. Like they've just really been good. I think since the President's Cup, since the Commissioner's Cup, they have literally been on a tear. They've beaten the Aces 3 consecutive times. They've blown them out 2 of the 3 times. Sabrina Nesco leads the WNBA 3-point shots made. Jonquel Jones has literally recovered from a stress fracture, and she's looking like the Jonquel Jones of the moment. And, the Liberty had the WNBA's, the league's AP Player of the Year, Breonna Stewart, who's still Stewie. He still is Courtney Vandersloot. And I think they also, most importantly, tied up Benaj Eleni. So now all 5 starters are in a really good place mentally and physically. On top of the fact of the depth, Washington could get one. It could be a sneaky one because of, like I said, the talent of the team. But this is the Liberty. I can't see the Liberty losing the series at all. I think the Liberty's going to win in 2, but it wouldn't surprise me if Washington got one.
You got number 3 seed Connecticut Sun versus the number 6 seed Minnesota Lynx.
Nafisa Collier is the reason why you watch the series in general. Nafisa Collier has put herself, I think, as the best player in the league, not named Asia Wilson or Breonna Stewart. She's really that good. And the fact that she's coming off a year where she was pregnant all of the majority of last season and came back at the end of the season, the way she's playing now, Feast is literally, like I said, top 3 or 4 player in this league. The problem is the Connecticut Sun are loaded, deadly, and to me, they're the only team in the league that can stop the Aces Liberty potential finals matchup. Alyssa Thomas is a walking triple-double at every stone. She's literally one of the best defensive players in the league. I think either her or Asia did win Defensive Player of the Year. I can't remember the voting. But they have Alyssa Thomas, DeWanna Bonner. They're so good and they're so well coached. And that the Mohegan Sun crowd is going to be up and at them. I like the Sun in this series. I think, like I said, if you've never watched Nafisa Collier play, this is the right series to watch because she is going to get buckets everywhere. I still think Minnesota's 1 player away in the draft from making this work. There are Paige Buchers coming home away from making this thing lethal unless there's a Phoenix point guard that wants to go help Kayla McBride in the backcourt next season. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
We'll get to that.
And then the 4 seed Dallas Wings and the Atlanta Dream. Now this is, most times you'll say a 4 or 5 upset.
4 and 5 is usually the most competitive series.
Listen, the Dallas Wings have been the best team that's not named the Las Vegas Aces, New York Liberty since the All-Star game. Arika Ogunwale is literally the best scorer in the playoffs. There's not a player like her in the league who is not afraid to let it fly at all costs. Satu Sabali is a walking double-double when she's on the court, and Dallas has everything going for from them. But there's something about this Atlanta Dream team. They at one point were as high as the 4 seed. They have been up and down. But Ted, if you've never watched the Dream before, Ryan Howard is a joy to watch. Cheyenne Parker is really good in the post. Alicia Gray has come over from Dallas. Actually, she played in Dallas last year, so she gets to play her former team in the playoffs. And Dallas does not want this series to get back to Atlanta because the Atlanta Dream have sold out 12 games this year and has turned their home court into a real home court advantage, playing in what me and Ted Hicks call the perfect WNBA sized arena, which they sell out consistently. So if Dallas has to go play a game in Atlanta with the marbles on the line, even though Ogunwale is that player, I like the Atlanta Dream in 3 games. I can't see chalk going in the playoffs. Give me the Dream in 3. They'll be the only low seed getting out of the first round.
Got it. Definitely will take some of your thoughts and apply them and see as this first round ends and, see what you got right, see what I got wrong. Hey, just really quickly. So was it Diana Taurasi? Did she have a press conference?
So the Phoenix Mercury had their end of season press conference, the usual exit interviews. The Mercury missed the playoffs the first time, and Ted, I think I might have been in college the last time. I think I had no facial hair working at a grocery store the last time the Mercury missed the playoffs. It's been that long. It's been since before Brittany Griner walked in the door. I think Diane Ross was young in the league, but that should tell you something. So exit interviews, I think it was on Tuesday. The question was brought to the attention of Diane Rossi about her coming back and playing at age 40 next season, her thoughts about being in Phoenix and other things. And one question came up about Skylar Diggins and a question about her and Skylar Diggins playing in the same backcourt next season. And her answer was, next question. Skylar Diggins is an unrestricted free agent this offseason who was not with the team this season as she was coming back from for having her second child. And it was a big dispute, and a major news story that Diggins has not been anywhere near the Phoenix facility since she had the birth of her child.
Yeah.
No access to any of the team doctors, the team nutritionists, physicians, or even the ability to even use the key card to go shoot hoops in the middle of the gym at night. Skylar was working out with, ironically, Phoenix Mercury legend Bridget Pettis last week, as a video was posted on Instagram. And based on Diana's, body language and the reaction to the question, it really sends the question of where's Skylar Diggins going to go next? There's a lot.
There's a lot. It's I know we're running out of time, but
we could go overtime. We can do overtime for this one.
I know there's a lot of hypocrisy within the WNBA because it's supposed to be about women's empowerment and everything else like that. Mm-hmm. But we've been hearing too many stories.
This is the second one. This is the second pregnant woman involved.
This is the second one. The other one was with the Aces.
Dearica Hambry and the Aces when it comes to the Sparks. Now, mind you, Kaylu Samuelson with the Sparks Kaylu Samuelson's out this year due to pregnancy, and we haven't heard anything from her about this, with anything going on with her situation. But I think her baby is happy and healthy, and she's good to go. But we haven't had to hear about what was going on with Kaylu the entire time she was pregnant. It just happened Dearica had to go through this last year, with the Aces final run, and Skylar's the highest profile player to have to go through this. When she hits the market, Ted, there's not going to be a single non-suitor in this league for Skylar Diggins because before she left, she was having a first-team all WNBA season. She was literally a dark horse to win the MVP. She was playing at probably the best Skylar Diggins level we have seen. Her run in Phoenix was amazing. The idea of bringing her and Diana and Brittany together to form a big three really was. It almost came to fruition 2.5 years ago when a couple years ago when they got to the finals and lost to Chicago, and then Brittany's unfortunate detainment in Russia, and then last season being a complete meltdown all angles that had Tina Charles tapping out early part of the season, Diana and Skylar getting into it on the sideline, a head coach that was removed because it just didn't work, and it was just plain a bad year in Phoenix. So Ted, now we go into the WNBA lottery. It's coming up. I think I forgot the day of the lottery. And in this year's class, Ted, there's so much women's talent in this class. This is the Caitlin Clark class. This is the Paige Bucher's class. This is the Angel Reese class. This is the Cameron Green class. This is literally the best WNBA class, Ted, that we've had in an extreme long time. Like I don't know if I can remember a level of talent of WNBA players that we've had ever at one time. And the Phoenix Mercury have a chance to get into the top three. Right now, their lottery odds are a little bit different because the league does a 2-year kind of synopsis of records. But at this point, Ted, they're at a good place where they can take a franchise-changing player to go next to Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner as Brittany's second year coming back. So if Skylar goes, everybody's thinking it could be Indiana because, of course, we all know she played at Notre Dame. There is a Notre Dame factor. But like I mentioned before, if Kayla McBride and the Defeater Collier can convince her to go to Minnesota, a place that at one point was the epicenter of the W. We know the Maya Moore and Simone Augustus and Sylvia Fowles teams with Lindsay Whalen. Those teams won championships. Or Ted, she can go and play in Seattle with the Gold Mamba and Jewel Lloyd and revitalize the Seattle Storm. I can say one place that she's not going to end up is New York City with the Liberty, because I can't figure out what type of cap gymnastics that would even entail to get her there.
They're loaded. And I'm sure they've got to be maxed out at the cap.
I mean, they were past max of the cap at this point. But Ted, it would be interesting seeing Skylar Diggins in a Liberty jersey, with Jay-Z being there full time at games, because they're all part of Rock Nation. Now, Ted, it could be interesting if Courtney Vandersloot decides to retire and they make some roster movements. Hey, they could possibly. But no, the Mercury is slotted for the second overall pick. By most mock drafts, it's looking like it's going to be Paige Buchers at the second overall pick. And the last time that Phoenix took a UConn guard with the top pick, we saw how it turned out. But no, it's going to be no shortage. I don't think that there would be a single team other than, I think, New York. I don't think Vegas, and I don't think even Atlanta or Dallas, because she's played in Dallas before, would go after her, because I think Atlanta's happy in the backcourt. But I think you have to take the call for Skylar Diggins. She's that much of an elite player. So
I usually ask you this question before we close is really quick thoughts, if you can wrap it up in 45 seconds to a minute, on relocation.
As far as the WNBA or just in general?
WNBA.
I don't think the gets relocated. Team-wise, I don't think relocation is going to happen. I think
you don't see Denver?
Oh, no, you're talking about expansion.
Excuse me, not relocation, expansion.
Oh, no, I think Denver's already in. I think Denver's going to get one. I think the other one's going to probably come down to Philadelphia, Toronto, or the Bay Area.
And this is for 2025, correct?
They're expecting 2025. I would have had this thing expedited because, Ted, truth be told, with a class of having Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, Angel Reese, and Cameron Brink in this class as the headliners, expansion should have been where these women are in expansion cities,
right?
Starting up their fan base, because truth be told, Caitlin Clark in Indiana is going to sell that building out. But is it going to help an Indiana team that doesn't really need another young star? They have the rookie of the year, Leah Boston. They had the previous rookie of the year, Alyssa Smith, in their front court. I don't think Caitlin Clark is what's needed. They need veteran leadership at the point guard, which makes Skylar Diggins the perfect fit to go home. Phoenix already has Diana Taurasi. They have Brittany Griner. They have one of the best fan bases in the league. Do they really need Paige Buchers? I think an expansion team can use it. It's to the point where Angel Reese is being mocked as the fourth overall pick of the draft.
Right.
Only because can you put Angel Reese in her front court with Aaliyah Boston and Alyssa Smith. I don't know if that's going to work. Do you put Angel Reese next to Brittany Griner and try the old Shaq and Chris Webber idea, the women's side of it? Brittany Griner be the best, best center in the league, and now you have the super dynamic forward right next to her, Angel Reese. I mean, listen, star-wise, Angel Reese in LA is a beautiful thing to see. Like Angel Reese, star power in Los Angeles, with her personality in the city of Los Angeles, they would take to her like at least she would be almost at Lisa Leslie and Candace Parker type of expectations if she went to LA.
Her huge personality.
But the thing is, Nneka Ogwumike is there, and they have a gaping hole at center, which Cameron brings in perfectly, which means Angel Reese goes to Seattle. And listen, they have a gaping hole at power forward, small forward, because another 30 left. So the Bayou Barbie becomes the Emerald City Barbie.
Right.
But those 4 women alone, Ted, should have an expansion city. Can you imagine? Let's just say, Ted, Cameron Brink was drafted to a team in the Bay Area. She played at Stanford. That built-in fan base from Stanford would be right then and there. Paige Buchers goes anywhere because she went at UConn would be amazing. Caitlin Clark is going to be the next big thing in the WNBA. She is. While Angel Reese is her own star, her own platform, the highest person in the highest money grabber NIL. Ted, and can you imagine? Let's just say, I don't know. Let's just say Long Island got a second team. Ted, can you imagine the popularity for Angel Reese playing at the Nassau Coliseum, for example?
I couldn't.
Because she had every New York rapper up there watching her games on a regular basis because she's super talented. She's super relatable.
Here's a really last question. Before even talking about team expansion or down the road relocation, they have to be focusing on roster expansion. That's key. That needs to happen. I mean, right now.
I mean, roster expansion is one thing, but Ted, the one thing we see the exit interviews is when you around the ladies league, and one of the questions is they'll tell you, "Hey, I'm packing my bags to go to Hungary next week to start my team next week." That's the part. I think before we get to roster expansion, before we get to league expansion, that's the part we need to worry about.
Fix the salaries. Expand the every team, expand it. I don't know, 3, 4, 5.
We should have had expansion a long time ago to increase the salary cap. Yes. That's how this should have worked. Expansion and the buy-in fees could have helped pay for the teams to be able to get larger salaries for their players. But we still have travel issues. There's so many issues in the WTED that that have not been addressed and have not been completely fleshed out all the way through, which probably the reason why expansion hasn't happened yet either. But I'm a big fan of Gabby Williams in Seattle, but she's already said prioritization because they're making her prioritize which league to play in, which is the Euro League, which she makes almost 3 times the money, or coming to play the W next year. So she's gonna play over a club team next season, and we're not going to have the talented French forward. And also, it's the Olympic year anyway, so that's another thing for the WNBA next season, because the Olympics falls right in the middle of the season, and prioritization, naturalization will come in. And will Kathy shut the league down for almost, I'd say, 6 weeks, so the women can get themselves ready for the Olympics? Are we going to get expanded? That's the things we have to worry about for next season.
Some of those are good problems. This episode is called "It Was About Basketball." Danny Thompson. Ways to follow you, Danny?
You can follow me on Twitter at Danny DANNY 3 Thompson on Twitter. Once Ted drops the WNBA logo off, you'll be able to see my Twitter handle. Follow my website, which is The Wonderful World of Data, on Substack. It's a free subscribe. Talking all things data in the NBA and the basketball sense. I will be returning back next month. The NBA season, Ted, I found out, is 6 weeks away. We're 6 weeks away from tip off of the season. So I'm getting ready to get ramped up to give basically the teaching side of analytics. From a simple and basic perspective to make you understand that numbers are extremely important, just as much as watching X's and O's and watching what you watch on the board every
Perfect. Danny, as always, thank you.
day. Always.